Good afternoon. How is everybody doing? Welcome to Curated Legacies, episode 9. Oh my goodness.
9.
Now, for
Wow.
those of you who may not know me, I am one of the co hosts here. My name is RJ, and I help motivated investors take the money that they've earned and create more revenue. And my co host is Prill.
Hello, I'm Prill, and full-time and part-time entrepreneurs turn to me when they're feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and headed towards burnout.
Do you like practices in your sleep? Because the way
No, when I try to like switch it up a little bit because you
you
tease
do,
me and
you
say
do,
I'm doing a commercial.
right. You did a little bit, it was a little bit different
It was
today.
different. I try to diversify, try to mix it up. Yeah.
So today, Pearl, I can't believe we are on episode 9. Can you believe it, co-host? I cannot believe it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is good. I mean, this is, we talk about this just really just what an accomplishment it is for us to even do one episode, let alone to have 9 under our belt and just to feel, just even more confident and comfortable as it goes on. It's a good feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've missed any of those conversations, this is our opportunity to give you a personal invitation to go back and listen to those conversations. Let us know if you have any value, if you've gotten any value, or if you have any
Mhm.
questions, or if you just simply want to join the conversation. We invite you to do that. Now, if you missed last week's episode, we talked about imposter syndrome. Oh, yeah, it shows up at different times. It causes you to second guess, self-doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
I constantly have to get myself off of that ledge. But
Mhm.
today's conversation, we want to talk about people pleasing. Yes, are you
Hmm.
a people pleaser? Now, you know
Hmm.
me, I like to switch things up. So this week, I want to start the conversation off with a couple of questions. And this is applicable for those who are people pleasers. You will see yourself in one or some of the one or more of the questions here. So let's
Mhm.
get going. You pretend to agree with everyone. You feel responsible for how other people feel.
Ugh.
You often apologize. You feel burdened by the things you have to do. And you know,
Mm.
the last one is you can't say no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
another one. So I remember a story my mom shared with me. She said I was around 4 years old. I was outside, playing with the neighborhood kids, and we weren't getting along. And I was the peacemaker. I was like, you know what? Can we just get along? It's okay. We don't have to do this. They could have been fussing over my toys. I have no idea. But the point of the story is, she shared with me since I was 4 years old. I've always been a peacemaker. But can I tell you, being a peacemaker, sometimes it can bump up against being a people pleaser. And
Mhm.
that's where you have to do what you always talk about, April, self-awareness. You have to
Right.
distinguish the difference, right? Because I do have a heart to serve and to please others, but I have to really serve and please myself first in order to be
Right.
good for others. And that's where I'm so excited about today's conversation.
Yeah. Well, and you've heard this, but I'm going to share it with our viewers and listeners. I read a quote online recently by a woman named Mel Robbins, and I don't know anything about this woman, so hopefully she's not like canceled or something. But but this quote was powerful, and
Okay.
it is: people pleasers usually start out as parent pleasers. And
Mm,
look, when I tell you reading that stopped me in my tracks because it was deep, but it resonated and it made perfect sense to me.
mhm.
And let me say this: we are not here to bash
Oh,
any
no.
parents, all right, or make any disparaging comments against our parents. So let me be clear about that
But wait a
because
minute, aren't we parents?
oh yeah, that's true. True. But I think I said that because I'm getting ready to share, some things about how we were raised. So, my parents definitely loved us. There's me. I have 3 sisters. They raised us to the best of their abilities, and I'm so thankful that we are all productive members of society. And we also have children. Speaking of us being parents, all of our children are productive members of society. But having said that. Uh, we cannot ignore the fact that a lot of our behaviors, and again, we mention this often here on Curated Legacies, but a lot of our current behaviors begin with how we were raised or some impactful experiences from our youth, or maybe something that happened like many, many years ago. And I'm not going to, go super deep into how I personally was raised, but I know for some of us, and I say us, RJ, because you know this, we have had to navigate numerous like sets of cultural norms and rules like simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, at church, I was required to do some things. Okay. So we sit that there. At church, I was commanded, okay, to do some others. Then we got school where I was instructed to do entirely different things. And then at work, as I shared last week, I felt threatened to do many things. Now, my parents raised some high achieving women. So to me, I always take that as anything that's laid out in front of me, I'm always going to do my best and I'm going to be my best at these things.
Regardless of the setting.
Right. So again, I learned early how to move in between and also excel within these various worlds at a very early age. And, now looking back, that translates into like heaping a bunch of just, extra helpings on my plate, so to speak, or responsibilities. And something else that I want to mention, and that is when I had my 2-week coaching intensive that I talked about a few episodes back. And I said that I had learned several things, very like just, I don't even have the words for some of the things that I learned about myself, and were to be able to even look back at those like true origins. Again, as we mentioned, we always talk about like your coach should have you peeling back layers. And one of which was a revelation that I was out here people pleasing in these streets. Okay. And
well, let me ask you this. How did that make you feel? I mean,
you already saw my pot, like, okay.
Right.
Because I go back, like I'm sucked right back into there. I did not like it, and already know what I'm going to say, but that's because that is a good coach. That is a sign of a good coach when they challenge you and they make you feel something. And I'm not just talking about feeling good, because RJ, we had that conversation.
Oh yeah, you don't want a coach that will tickle your ears. You want one that's going to support you in your journey, but there's a difference.
Right. So no, I didn't. My initial reaction was I didn't like it. I had to reel kind of that back in. And we're talking about like a matter of seconds, this is happening. But I felt some type of way about it. But of course, that was my homework. Now I'm going to have to like look and see why that bothered me so much. Why did I feel the way I felt about that? And just explore that. And what I realized, working with the coach, what I realized was, like you said, RJ, your people pleasing showed up as being the peacemaker. Well, mine was not wanting to disappoint. And that is the reason why I said yes all the time. That was the reason why I had one business that went into 2 businesses, that went into 3 different branch offs from the businesses, and for me, I would think about people's reactions and think about people's feelings and how I didn't want to let them down, or, not keep my word and not do what I said.
You said something, you wanted to be able to honor your word, because you understood your word is all that you have to stand on, right?
Yeah. And to that point, where I'm from in Cleveland, in many places, throughout the East Coast, and like in the South where you're from, RJ, like you said, we have that strong value system. Okay. And our good name, your good name. All right. It's everything, and it precedes you, and it can also open doors for you. That saying, I like my word is my bond. So I was taught that my name is one of the few things that I can control, within my life. And that type of thinking of keeping your word, keeping your promises. Again, let's not forget about, what was taught to me in church. Also, what I learned, I started working at 14. So when your supervisor or your manager, director, whatever, gives you a task to do, you do it. And, like, I don't like unnecessary conflict, like, I don't like it either.
You like a drama-free life. And so
right. I live a peaceful.
Well, to have that peaceful, drama-free life, there's certain things that you have to have in place. And one is If I say I'm gonna do it, I'll do it. Then I don't have to deal with any type of drama, no hassle. But meanwhile, what is that doing to you?
Right, right. And I have the self-assurance. I have the self-confidence. But I still try to like stay out of the way of unnecessary conflict. And we talked about, earlier today, what I told you. And I'm like, where I had to address something and I had to shut it down, okay, in the utmost professional way. So I'm able to do that, but that's in its healthiest state, okay, where I am now. I
Mhm.
used to rationalize
Mhm.
a lot of my people pleasing, by telling myself, okay, well, I don't want to make waves, or I don't want to disrupt
That's a
someone
common
else's
that's a
flow.
common one. That's
Or
a common one. I don't want to make waves, whether that's in the workplace or in a family setting. Because let's make that clear. Being a people pleaser, like you said, the different areas you talked about, school, work. What were the other two that you said? School,
church,
work,
home.
right. I mean, there's so many different buckets, but yeah,
Right.
it shows up in different places, and it can really rock against a lot of other areas as well.
It can. And I used to put, say, well, let me think about other people as people first. Um, I would tell myself, okay, well, if I got time to do it, then I will. But here's the thing, I always made the time. Regardless if it was disruptive to me and my flow or disrupted my plans, they took priority. And in some environments, interpersonal, I'll just say interpersonal relationships. And when we say interpersonal relationships, I think we normally think of, like partners and like a romantic sense. We think about our family, we think about relationships with our friends, our children. But we also don't think about the interpersonal relationships that we share in a corporate environment. We
Mhm.
spend more time, well, not now, but I used to spend more time. And those of you who are in more of the traditional office setting, we spend more time with our coworkers, our waking hours, than we do
I
with
mean, that's
our
where the
family.
phrase came from when you hear people say office husband or office
Yeah,
wife.
office wife. Yeah.
So
But you do, you have your friends, or like there's one guy that I'm still very close with, and he started off as my I call him like my Gallup BFF at work, because they used to test engagement at my last company by sending out
absolutely.
Gallup polls. And so one of the questions was, do you have a best friend at work? And I used to say, no, 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 until this gentleman became like my really good friend. And so, to me, a friend, we see each other outside of work. So it's like, okay, yes, he's my Gallup BFF at work. But yeah, like you develop these relationships, and just like you can have some unhealthy interpersonal relationships. Like, think back, I don't know anyone who every relationship they've had, either with their family, with a loved one, romantic relationship, whatever, like we're best friends with someone when we're younger that we're not now. Or
Oh,
you have a ex-partner or even an ex-spouse that
mhm.
at one point you all fit, and then you're no longer together.
Or
So
when you leave a job and go to another job, do you still, sometimes you lose in touch with the people that you had developed that relationship with.
right. So again, these are just some examples of, I think, the ways that it's instilled in us. And with each place you leave, each relationship you have, you take something else with you. You kind of just throw it in your pack, and you go. And as I mentioned, I already had like a heap and helping of everything on my plate, way too much. I'm quick to say I was on team too much. I definitely am
But you
someone
feel like that
who,
was the norm at some point. At one point, that was the norm to have an enormous plate.
yeah. And you know what? So let's just like press pause for a second, and let's talk about something that is a real life, not that these aren't, but just something that we are currently working through. And when you mentioned that, it made me think about how I shared with you about how I used to take so much pride when I would pull up my calendar at work, and even a little bit when I first became an entrepreneur. I would pull up my calendar, and I would just see like boom, 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 boom. Everything's blocked out. Oh my goodness. There's like no time on my calendar. Like, to me, that gave me a sense of security. It gave me a sense of pride, and it said like you're really productive. And recently, because of the client that I have and how, you know, it's like things are starting to pick up, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like I'm have to reach back and revisit some skills that I haven't had to use in a while being cognizant. Okay. I have to be acutely aware of the fact that that is a slippery slope for me, taking on too much. But thankfully, like I told you, like, this is too much like work. Oh no, I'm not with this. Like, I'm not a fan of not having my breathing room or my room to,
like the healthy boundaries.
Right. Like
That.
I felt like, you know, to how you were saying butts up against, it was butting up against some of my like boundaries. And yes, there's ebb and flow with life. There's things that happen that sometimes you have to go hard, but it should be, there should be an end date on that. It shouldn't be, TBD, like, or like you can't see past.
Long term is not sustainable.
No, it's not. And that leads to burnout. So even with us, you know, the new things that we've got on our plate that we're super excited about, but it's also like, whoa, this is going to cause us to have to like switch gears. And we are both holding each other accountable to ensure that, you know, you've got your ways that thank goodness are different from mine. So, and then there's some that overlap, but we hold each other accountable because, you know, you do have to shift gears, but making sure that you still block out that time, that you still maintain the balance and the boundaries. Like I'm huge on that balance and boundaries. Okay.
But you know, that's why it's important to have a community. You can't do it alone. You just can't. Many of us have tried, and myself included, because I think I know it all, I got it all, but it's like, you can't do it alone. You need a community to support you.
You do. All right. Well, this seems like I'm the official timekeeper, but
okay.
I think that's kind of it. It's a short one today. I mean, you know, look, we show up, we say what we got to say, and then we go.
We out.
Yeah, we got to go. Like, you know, so yeah, well, you know what time it is. RJ, as we wrap up, what are going to be your key takeaways and food for thought for today?
Well, I guess for me, it would be no is a complete sentence.
Sure is.
It's a complete sentence.
Yep.
And, you know, something that you say week after week, I know you sound and probably feel like a broken record, but it's important to have that self-awareness. Be intentional, being in tune with yourself. You know when you're people pleasing, you know, and you need to check that, because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you can start to grow resentment, and and you don't even realize it's festering it up, and it shows up in different places, and you're like, what is this? What's that all about? Well, yeah, you were people pleasing and not pleasing yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Keeping it all in, smiling on the outside, but like on the inside. And I'll say this, okay? Yes, I get it. You want to look good at work. You want to impress your leadership. You want to show that you can be, you know, what do they call the team player? Or like you, RJ, you want to be the peacemaker within your friend group or your family or relationships, you know. And it is easier to avoid conflict, but this could backfire with the quickness. Okay. Plus, again, you know, I have to put this plug in. You're going to be on the fast track to burnout if you're trying to be all the things to all of the people all of the time. Okay. Because again, as I just said a few minutes ago, we are striving for, we are after balance and boundaries. That is the end goal. So, you know, piggybacking off of what you said, RJ, about no, I'm going to encourage you to start exercising your right to say no. Like saying, you know, that simple, it's a little word. And I know it can be tough, but you know, trust me, it is oh so liberating. Also, something else that you mentioned, start speaking up and begin to say what you're feeling, begin to give your opinion. You know, as I mentioned to you, as an introvert, as somebody who likes to stay in the cut, as someone who deals with social anxiety, there's all kinds of conversations happening in here. Like I'm a part of things, like we're having a conversation, but no words are coming out of my mouth. So keeping all of that in It's like when you are traveling, just say you got that suitcase and maybe it was a little tight when you got there. You got to, like squeeze it, but then you did a little shopping while you were gone. So now you got to sit on it.
Right.
Okay, that's what happens. That's what happens when you keep everything inside. Like you mentioned, you get that resentment, but it's because it starts to build up because you're keeping everything in.
I got a quick question for you, because I know you're not keeper, but I know you had a situation earlier today, without going into any details, because you talked about feeling liberated. Can you talk about how you felt when you were faced with what you were faced with today?
Yeah, sure thing. And I'll be real. Here we keep it a buck. My initial reaction, I think my instinctual reaction was to appease this person again. But I had already done that before. And I already had set a limitation going in. I knew it was going to be a little bit of turbulence, just because of the nature of what I do. I knew I was going to get a little bit of resistance.
We're still trying to be on team, get along.
Right, exactly. Which is fine, because I need them. They don't need me to do their job. I need them to, give me that data. But I had already gone into it saying, and coming out of it, with having some clear boundaries for myself, to where, okay, I know I tried this, check. I said that, check. I played nice here, check. Typically, let me just add one more thing on the list here. I would spread my own boundaries. I mentioned that last week about imposter syndrome, really just how our boundaries can continue to, just spread, and how people would take advantage of that. But it's us who are opening up more room. Kind of like if you go to the checkout, like I love Trader Joe's. I know you do too, RJ. But sometimes Trader Joe's is really good about this. If they see that there's more than like one person on queue, someone will jump in and open up another register. And that's kind of what I was doing, to give them a feel good, or, in this example, the customer extend some good customer service. I am opening another checkout. I am doing, instead of having them be, what I may perceive, again, this is my perception, me trying to preempt things and think for them, like, oh, well, they may think this, or I may appear this way, so let me just add something else to the list. And I was like, nope, that's not what we're doing. So, I sent an email. It was clear, it was concise, but he came back with understood. I had to again, apply a little bit of self-assurance and be a little bit more assertive, because I'd already reached the end of where I was going to go. And again, this was professional. It's nothing, but those of you who know, when when you start putting, so I'm clear, or as I mentioned in prior email, we have our little ways, of saying stuff. Like he
professional.
Right. Of course, keep it professional. But, I have to let him know, like, okay, this is not,
you got to keep it 100 too.
Right. It's not what we're doing. But I didn't escalate it to where the next step will be, which is to go and get, everybody, like to get his leadership involved. So again, you have to kind of go into it. I knew that I was going to have to, be nicey nice because of the nature of the dynamic. I also was like, okay, well, I'm not about to extend my boundaries anymore. Let me stay clear here. And then the next thing is, well, if I don't get what I need, then I definitely can escalate it. So again, just putting those things in place, because like I said, my natural instinct was I had to do, I typed out something, not in anger. Sometimes you type it out and you're like, you have the backspace, everything. I don't do that. But I typed it out. It was not as assertive as I needed to be. So I did that, and I'm like, whoa, look, nothing happened. The sky didn't fall in. No voice came down like, hey, bro, nothing happened. Like what, here's the thing. And I use this with my clients as well. Like when people usually say, what's the worst thing that can happen? Typically, the next thing is they say no. I say, what's the worst that can happen? They say yes. Or what's the worst that can happen? They give you what you want. Or what's the worst that can happen? It's approved. Fill in the blank, right? And I say that because I ask people, tell me what your worst case scenario is.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me their worst case scenario, which 99.99% of the time is their current state.
Mm-hmm.
So you are living in your worst case scenario. Yay. Okay, so it happened. Now the only place to go is up from here.
Mm-hmm.
You can dig down, but you're going to dig.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's like, you can fall down, you can tumble down, you can, slip and roll down, but when you hit that bottom, in order for you to go down more, you have to dig.
You have to dig.
That's on them. Like that is a
But you have to understand where to place the ownership too.
right. That's intentional that you chose to go lower. Okay. But for most of us, the only place to go is up from here. Like really nothing bad is going to happen when you say no. And here's the thing too. If you start being a friend to yourself, if you start pumping yourself up, if you start putting yourself first, again, in a balanced way, not like, I'm gonna do me and you become just rude and inconsiderate.
Yeah,
But
no.
you have to take inventory of people's reactions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you say no and they're like, oh, okay, well, thanks anyway, or whatever. But if you say no and they make it about them,
Mm-hmm.
when you know for a fact that what you're doing is going against either what you want or what you need, or you're putting other people first. And when like I said, I you throw your hand up and you say, hey, you told me if this is ever too much, it's too much now. And they react in a negative way, take inventory of that.
Mm-hmm. Because that's saying a lot. They've always been that way, but you've always been pleasing.
Right.
And so going against the grain, it's like, what are you doing? That's not how we do things. And you're like,
right, what? Right. So, and I will say this, also, if you are, like really struggling to break these habits, or let's just say you realize this is not something that's going to be easy, because again, you got to go deep for some of this stuff. It goes way, way back. Okay. Then I would love for you to go and seek help. From a trained professional, a therapist or a counselor. Like they can give you the tools to really empower you, and just get some of those things up out of you and get them off of you. Okay. Right. Because as RJ said,
very liberated, like you were saying a few minutes ago.
Yeah. And you don't have to do it alone. You don't. So, okay. Well, that's it. All right. Well, look at that. we done seemed like the time just jumped ahead. Okay. All right. Well, let's just go ahead and shut it on down. Thank you for tuning in today. And of course, we would love for you to join us next week when we are going to, we're going to have a true money conversation. We're having company again. Okay. So we are bringing you another speaker series. And we've got an awesome guest coming to talk about retirement and inflation and some of those other finance areas that we're currently seeing all throughout the news. And then also, if this is your first time joining us, then we invite you to check out episodes 1 through 8. Oh my goodness. And of course, feel free to let us know your thoughts in the comments. RJ?
Yeah, it's another showdown, and we're very excited, like she said, about next week. I mean, I'm going to have my pen and paper ready because I know our guest is going to give us, all of our guests, they always are they overpour, they overshare, and I love it. So until then, you guys have a great rest of the week, and we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.
Bye-bye.